He wrote 3 times before she got nerve enough to write back. And that was because his letters were far from sentimental. They were full of fun and good-humored news. Yesterday, I was out for a walk in the evening. It was dark and my mind was elsewhere. I know you won't believe it, but I was stone sober. Anyway, I tripped and fell into this pool and awakened a family of frogs. And you couldn't believe the noise they made. The bullfrog especially outdid himself. He must have thought me a rival. I am a clerk in charge of a warehouse. It is very tame after the army. Not that I was brave. I remember I spent more time shooting in the air to scare off imaginary enemies and to reassure myself than I did actually killing anyone. He could not get leave at all for the first 6 months, so he knew that those letters were his lifeline. With the intuition of one in love, he knew how to put all of himself into his letters and yet show total restraint. He did not want to blow his chances with one stupid word. Gradually, she relaxed and started writing him longer letters, telling him things about herself. I have a grandmother, a mother and a cousin who is studying to be a priest. My grandfather and father and my cousin's father, who is my uncle, are all long dead. The 2 women have brought us up. I wish you could meet them. My grandmother is a real character, but she has been sickly of late. I am very worried about her. I owe her so much. My mother is very kind-hearted and quite strong, though she has always been in the shadow of her mother, who is a woman of iron. I like to think that I am like my grandmother, but I know that if any of the things that have happened to her were to happen to me, I will die. Their courtship went on in this gentle offhand manner, but at the end of 6 months, they knew each other pretty well. At least she knew she liked him, and he, who was impetuous, knew that he was in love and wanted to get married. Meanwhile, she sat for her examination and got her teacher's certificate. She was posted back to her old school, and she was grateful for a chance to be near her mother and ailing grandmother. She was 22 and all the girls she had grown up with were married with children. She was an object of curiosity. A woman who worked at anything apart from tilling the land and rearing children was a hitherto unknown phenomenon. Her salary, which was a mere 50 shillings a month, was a fortune in their eyes. The power of money in this new world was beginning to sink into people's mentality. Their envy was palpable, and she was taunted at every turn. Akoko, now a very old lady nearing 80, was not at all well. She was weak and got breathless at the slightest exertion. Her ankles were constantly swollen, and every once in a while her heart would do a strange dance within her ribcage, almost like the flutter of a bird trying to break free. Her eyes were dimmed with cataracts, but her hearing was surprisingly good. And wonder of wonders, her spirit was still bright and strong within that broken body. She had lived her life in one long, passionate giving of herself, and now it was twilight, and the end was near. So near that sometimes she felt it to be a mere heartbeat away, with only her soft, fluttering breath between this life and the next. She was a woman who had probably always known what she wanted and what was needed of her, and she had lived her life accordingly. Though she was very wise, one could hardly say that she had been born in the wrong era, that had she lived in a different era, she would have been a great intellectual, a pioneer, and a leader of humanity. In truth, such clarity of vision and strength of person are a discomfiture to all men of all ages, and she would therefore never have really fitted in that, this, or any other century, for human beings prefer to be left alone to muddle along in confusion. It is more comfortable than to suffer the pain of self-knowledge. Her thoughts now frequently dwelt on her late husband, dead 30 years. He had been an extraordinary man, even though she had never appreciated just how extraordinary he was when he lived. He was a simple man who lived an extraordinary life without doing anything out of the ordinary. What monumental courage he must have had, and how that courage had influenced and formed his young bride. What might she not have given to have him beside her as she walked these last faltering steps of her life? But to each an allotted lifespan is given, and against this there is no appeal. Yet she hung on, her strong will holding her yearning soul to a body it longed to live. She just hung on determinedly and waited. Mark wrote and said he was coming to see Elizabeth during his leave in 2 weeks' time. He said that he had important matters to discuss and will therefore go fast to his home to collect his uncle and his brother to accompany him. Will she arrange to have a few male relatives to come to receive them? It was very important that she did so. Her heart did a flip-flop and her knees felt quite weak. Really? What a man! However, there was no time to waste, so she called her mother and grandmother and told them about Mark. Akoko's eyes gleamed. And why, child, have you not told us about this man before? 2 weeks indeed. Where does he come from, and what are the names of his parents? This from Maria. He comes from Seme, but I don't know the names of his parents. What do you mean you don't know? How can you even consider having friendship with a man whose roots and antecedents you don't know? What is the world coming to? She lamented. Akoko drew on her fast dwindling powers to bring back reason and order. Accept it, Maria. The world is changing. All is not lost. However, we must listen to the suit according to Chick, for we are still the children of Ramogi. You shall therefore leave for Sakwa at Kokro tomorrow and fetch your brother-in-law, this girl's uncle. I shall also send word to Imbo, to my nephews, the twins Opio and Odongo. Those two rascals must be old men now. Finally, I shall get Father Thomas to send for Owor at the seminary. He is the closest thing to a brother the girl has, and he must be there. These semi people must not think that because we are widows and Christians and sojourners in this place, we do not know how things are done. She patted her granddaughter's hand with calm affection. It is going to be all right. You will see, so long as there is no consanguinity and he is no thief or witch, there is nothing to worry about. In any case, what is a witch except one who is driven by his shortcomings to harm others? Besides, I believe in God. Do not worry, all will be well. And Elizabeth thought to herself, what will I do without her when she is gone? She is the steady rock of our lives. She looked at the simple hut in which she had grown up. It was round and grass-thatched. There was a kind of enclosed veranda at the entrance, and then there was the main room, which was semicircular, and the sleeping room, which was also semicircular. Outside were 4 granaries and a small cooking hut. 3 granaries were empty, a testimony to the declining strength of her grandmother. Beside the granaries was a cattle pen, which was generally full at night when the herds came in from grazing. It was still quite a respectable herd of cattle, usually attended by hired men. Most other women would not have bothered, seeing that the only son was headed for priesthood. But Akoko had to instill in her daughter and granddaughter that work was a discipline and poverty was an enemy to be fought. God has no time for the lazy, but the devil has, was a favorite saying of hers. It was a simple house in which she had led a simple life, but she had been surrounded by love and caring. She had lived among strangers, but had never lacked a sense of continuity. It had been a good life. The preparations were made and excitement was in the air. Kongo was brewed in 2 large pots. A young bull was selected for slaughter, and many cockerels were to meet a sticky end on that day, though they went about their business of intimidating the hens, completely oblivious of the fact. Sorghum was ground in large quantities, and arrangements were made for fresh tilapia to be brought from the lake a long distance away. No effort will be spared, for a betrothal was a time to show largesse, and for her only granddaughter, Akoko would outdo herself one last time. The day finally arrived, and it was a day as full of beauty as the day in which Owor Kembo of Sakwa, in full battle regalia and a leopard skin loin piece, had come to pay suit to the great chief Oderogog Neofimbo for the hand of his daughter Akoko Obanda. Yet some things were different. A stone's throw away was the church with its tall steeple bearing a cross at the top, a symbol of the new and different way of life, yet in some ways reminiscent of the reverence once paid to Were, the god of the eye of the rising sun who had guided the people. Further along was the school, the place of learning, without which one was a blind man in a strange house. All round was evidence of the rule of the white people, who were good administrators but often unjust and unheeding to the pleas and aspirations of their black subjects. Indeed, in the central province and in Nairobi, especially among the Kikuyu, there were rumors of mass uprising against the colonial powers. Olo, the son of Sigo, otherwise known as Mark Antony, arrived with his entourage of 6, including his uncle, at mid-morning. Aware of the importance and the impact of presence and courage, he arrived in his military fatigues, a colobus monkey headdress, and a spear in his hand. He was, after all, a soldier. It was an intriguing combination of the old and new. Anyone else might have looked odd, but Olo looked dashing. His complexion was deceptively light, and it drew questioning glances from his hosts and hostesses. Had their daughter decided to marry a Jamwa, a foreigner? Apart from Akoko, who must have left her mother's womb with a broad outlook, all of them were strictly parochial, and marriage to even a Luya from across the border was considered a catastrophe. It was therefore a relief when the suitors broke into pure Luo with the dialect of the middle region of Ramogi. Their daughter was a prize, a beacon, a source of pride for the entire clan. They simply could not bear giving her away to a stranger. Brothers, we greet you and bring you many greetings from the people of Seme. My nephew Olo, son of my late brother Sigo, came to me and said, "Father, I have found a girl and I want to get married." Now, I am a reasonable man and I know the ways of chick. So I asked him, "Son, one does not just find a girl in the air. One sends a jawangyo to go and spy a girl and find out her antecedents and character. Is she a thief or a witch? Is she lazy or shiftless? Might there be consanguinity between you and her? Who is her mother and father?" I tell you, my brothers, that I was flabbergasted to hear that none of these things had ever crossed his mind. He knew that her mother's name was Maria and her grandmother's name was Akoko, and that was all. You will therefore forgive us, brothers, because we do not know you and you do not know us. We only came because we had faith in our son, who has always been a reasonable man. I am Semurakula of Seme. Our village is near that strange rock upon a rock, Kitmikai. We are the descendants of that great warrior, Nyagudi Kogambi. Olo and these young men are my sons and nephew. Olo is a man of learning, and what is more, a soldier who has fought for the white man in distant lands. Now he is a clerk with a big Kambi company in Nakuru, where he gets a good salary. So, should this suit be acceptable to all, you need have no fear that your daughter will starve. I tell you these things because they are things Ajawangyo would have found out for you. Thank you, brothers. A pot of Kongo was moved near him and he drew a long, refreshing doubt. Some things never change. A spokesman always needs to irrigate his throat. Brothers, people of Seme, my name is Oyange Silwal. The girl Awiti is the only child of my late brother Okumo. We are from Sakwa, from the village of Gombe. The girl has grown up in game because her mother, being a widow and having converted to Christianity, decided to settle here, which is a good thing because now she is like a light for the rest of us. She is highly educated and a teacher of children. So your son will be bringing a light to your home, an educated woman. He is indeed a very lucky man. At this, the suitors shifted uncomfortably because they knew it was a preamble to some horrific demand for bride price. On observing this, Oyange smiled secretly to himself. It was nothing of the sort, but it never did any harm to let suitors stew in their own juice a little. In fact, he was very angry with Akoko and Maria for insisting that the bride price be a mere token. He himself would have set it twice the normal amount, if not more. Whoever saw such beauty, such learning, it was a waste. He had almost stormed off until Akoko reminded him how he had neglected his duty in raising his brother's child. Did he want to compound that by refusing to do this, his last duty to her? He was a superstitious man, so he dared not to leave after that. Semo spoke again. Brothers, people of Sakwa, we are happy to know you and hope that soon we shall not just be friends, but relatives as well. We have heard what you have said. We wish to know what bride price would please you. For this jewel, there can be no bride price. Therefore, we have decided to give her to you free, except for a token bull, 2 cows and 6 goats, with which to furnish the requirements of Chick. The bull shall come to me in lieu of her father. The 2 cows and goats will be taken to Imbo to the house of Olo, her grandmother's brother, who in all ways was a father to the girl and her cousin, and always provided for them. The aspiring suitors, stared in disbelief, held in readiness back in Seme, were 24 head of cattle, double the normal bride price, which was the least they expected to be asked. Olo had instructed his uncle to ask for a grace period of 6 months in which he would have looked for whatever else they would have demanded. And now this? They couldn't possibly give away such a girl for free. They must have something hidden up their sleeves. But they hadn't. He was just an incredibly lucky man, and it was beginning to dawn on him. Eventually, everything was concluded, and as conversation, food, and Kongo flowed, Akoko asked her grandson-in-law to come and sit next to her. They talked at length, and she was seen smiling and nodding her grey head frequently. At one point, she burst into a wheezy, breathless laughter, and everybody's eyes turned towards them with interest. She was full of joy. She had lost one son to the white man's war, and by the grace of God, she had gained another from the white man's army. Like Anna and Simeon of old, she could now die in peace, for her eyes had also seen the promise. That night, she died quietly in her pallet in the corner. She did not struggle, and therefore her daughter Maria, who always slept with one ear cocked in case her mother called out for her, did not awaken. Her soul simply slipped out of a body that had finally accepted to let go. It was that dark hour, just before dawn, when death, shrouded in darkness, most prefers to make his rounds. She died as she had lived. Well. And that is all she would have ever wanted, life being, after all, just a transient, if powerful dream.